The stolen phone scam fell apart instantly. Retail employees deal with weird customers every day. Broken phones, forgotten passwords, people who somehow manage to lock themselves out of devices they've owned for years. Most of the time, it's just another day at work. According to one electronics employee, that's exactly what he thought when two men walked into his store carrying a phone that supposedly locked itself. At first, the story sounded ridiculous. The customer claimed he fell asleep on the phone, pressed random buttons, and somehow accidentally activated a security feature. But the second the employee turned on the screen, he knew something was very wrong. Because staring back at him in giant letters were 7 words that completely changed the situation. "Bring back my phone, a hole." And according to the employee, things only got stranger from there. According to the employee telling the story, he worked in the electronics department of a large retail store. The department sold phones, tablets, accessories, the usual technology products. One thing customers constantly misunderstood was what employees actually did. People assumed they were repair technicians, IT specialists, phone engineers, basically technology wizards. The reality was much simpler. Employees sold products, answered basic questions, and occasionally helped customers understand simple settings. That's it. According to the employee, he wasn't authorized to unlock phones, reset security systems, or bypass passwords, which made the next customer encounter incredibly strange. One afternoon, 2 men approached the counter, according to him. So they looked nervous immediately. Not angry, not frustrated. Nervous. One of them placed a phone on the counter, then launched into a story. Apparently, he had fallen asleep while holding the phone. While sleeping, he somehow pressed random buttons. When he woke up, the phone was locked, and now he desperately needed help. The employee listened politely. First, it sounded unusual, but not impossible. Phones do weird things sometimes. People accidentally activate settings. People forget passwords. It happens. Then he picked up the phone, and everything changed. The moment he pressed the power button, a message appeared. A very unusual message. Not a lock screen. Not a password request. A custom message. One clearly written by another person. It read, "Bring back my phone, a hole." According to the employee, he immediately stopped believing the story. Because people don't usually leave messages like that on their own devices, and the message didn't stop there. Below it was a phone number, and a bright green call button, meaning whoever owned the device wanted it returned. Immediately, the employee looked at the customer, then back at the phone, then back at the customer again. His customer smiled nervously, and according to the employee, that made things even worse, because now the whole situation felt wrong. Still, he decided to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe it belonged to a friend. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. So he pressed the call button. The phone dialed immediately. Everyone waited. The call rang, then went to voicemail. The voicemail greeting sounded completely normal, and according to the employee, it definitely didn't sound like the customer. When the call ended, he explained the situation. "I'm sorry, sir, but it looks like the phone has been locked by the owner." The customer's attitude changed instantly. Gone was the nervous friendliness. Now he was angry. Very angry. He slammed his hand on the counter and snapped, "I am the owner." The employee remained calm, then asked a simple question. One question that should have ended everything. If you're the owner, what's the password? By the way, if you've ever worked retail and instantly knew a customer was lying, make sure to subscribe, because somehow these guys were about to make the situation even worse. The customer froze, just for a second. Then he replied, "There isn't a password." The employee blinked. The customer continued. According to him, the phone shouldn't have a password at all. Apparently it had somehow created one by itself while he slept. The employee couldn't believe what he was hearing, because that's not how phones work at all. And deep down, everybody at the counter knew it, including the customer's brother. Unfortunately, the brother decided to help, or at least try to. He suddenly stepped forward, pointed at the phone, and started yelling, "He is the owner! According to the brother, he could prove it, right now, right there, in front of everyone. The employee simply waited. The brother grabbed his own phone, then dialed the number shown on the lock screen, apparently expecting a big victory. Instead, nothing happened. No ringing, no vibration. No confirmation, nothing. According to the employee, the silence was beautiful, because the entire scam started collapsing right there, in real time, and everybody knew it, except the two guys trying to run it. The employee looked at both men. Both men looked back at him. Nobody said anything for a moment, because the situation had become incredibly awkward. The brother had just confidently claimed the phone belonged to them, then immediately failed to prove it. According to the employee, they started getting defensive, very defensive. The original customer began insisting that technology was broken. The phone was broken, the security system was broken. Everything was broken, everything except his story, which somehow kept changing. The employee wasn't interested in arguing. He simply explained the situation again. The device appeared to be locked by the owner. The owner had provided a callback number, and without the password, there was nothing he could do. The customer didn't like that answer, not one bit. According to the employee, he started yelling loudly, loud enough for nearby customers to turn around. The brother joined in too. Now both men were talking over each other, demanding the phone be unlocked, demanding management, demanding answers. The employee remained calm, mostly because he had stopped believing them 20 minutes ago. Then he made a decision. One very simple decision. He picked up his radio and called for a manager. According to him, that was the moment everything changed. The second the two men heard the word manager, their confidence vanished. Instantly. The yelling stopped. The demands stopped. The fake outrage stopped. It was almost like somebody had flipped a switch. The employee found it incredibly strange. After all, if the phone really belonged to them, why would they care about speaking to a manager? A manager couldn't magically change the facts. A manager couldn't bypass security. A manager couldn't make them the owner. Yet somehow, they suddenly wanted no part of management. The employee watched them carefully. The brothers exchanged a look, the kind of look people give each other when a plan falls apart. Then one of them muttered something. The other nodded. And according to the employee, they immediately headed for the exit. Not walking. Not casually browsing. Leaving. Fast. Within seconds, they were halfway across the store. The employee stood there confused. The manager was still on the way. The conversation wasn't even finished, yet the customers were already disappearing. By the time the manager arrived, the two men were gone, completely gone, out the front doors. And according to the employee, they never came back. The manager naturally wanted an explanation, so the employee told him everything. The strange story, the lock screen message, the phone number. The failed phone call. The fake owner claim, the missing password. And finally, the sudden sprint toward the exit. The manager listened quietly, then started laughing. Not because theft is funny, because the whole plan was unbelievably stupid. According to both of them, the most likely explanation was obvious. The phone was stolen. The real owner had activated the lock, and the thieves had somehow convinced themselves a retail employee could bypass it, which was never going to happen. Even if the employee wanted to, the store simply didn't have that capability, so the entire scam had been doomed from the start, and yet they tried anyway. That's probably what amazed the employee most. Not the theft. It's not the lies. The confidence. The absolute confidence. They had walked into a busy store, handed over what appeared to be a stolen phone, argued with employees, failed every basic question, and somehow still expected the plan to work. And honestly, the funniest part wasn't the lock screen message. It wasn't the fake story. It wasn't even the failed phone call. It was the fact that these guys made it all the way to the manager stage before realizing they should probably leave. The second management got involved. The entire act collapsed. The confidence disappeared. The attitude disappeared. And suddenly, they couldn't get out of that store fast enough. Which tells you everything you need to know. If that phone really belonged to them, they would have stayed. Instead, they ran. And according to the employee, that's the closest thing to an admission of guilt he was ever going to get. Two thieves walked into a store looking for help and accidentally proved the phone wasn't theirs the entire time. And honestly, the craziest part about this entire story isn't that these guys were carrying what was almost certainly a stolen phone. It's that they actually thought the plan would work. They walked into a busy electronics store, handed an employee a phone that literally had a message from the owner on the screen, couldn't provide the password, couldn't explain the lock, couldn't prove ownership, and somehow still expected everything to go their way. But what do you think? Were these guys actually thieves? Or were they just two of the most technologically confused customers in history? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy entitled people stories, retail nightmares, workplace drama, and satisfying karma, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story.
She wanted someone else's cake. Every customer service worker has heard it before. Do you know who I am? Or even worse, I know the owner. According to one bakery employee, a woman walked into their store just hours before a major football game and made exactly that claim. The problem? She hadn't ordered a cake, she hadn't reserved anything, and the cake she wanted already belonged to someone else. Most people would have accepted that and left. Not this woman. Instead, she threatened employees, demanded special treatment, and repeatedly claimed she was personal friends with the owner. What she didn't realize was that the owner had been listening to the entire conversation, and according to the employee, he decided to have a little fun before revealing who he really was. According to the employee telling the story, she worked the front counter of a popular local bakery. The bakery had all kinds of products: cookies, pastries, birthday cakes, but one item was especially popular: football cakes. According to the employee, they sold huge numbers of them during football season. Local teams, college teams, professional teams, customers loved them. The problem was demand, because every game weekend, the bakery would sell out fast. That's why customers had to reserve them ahead of time, at least one day in advance. Sometimes longer. The bakery wasn't being difficult. They simply needed time. Baking, decorating, preparing orders. According to the employee, the policy was clearly explained to everyone. Most customers understood. Then came Karen, only a couple of hours before kickoff, and immediately, the employee knew something was wrong. Because Karen walked straight to the display case and pointed at one of the football cakes. "I'll take that one." The employee smiled politely, then asked a simple question: "What name is the reservation under?" Karen looked confused. Apparently, she hadn't reserved anything. Instead, she explained she saw the cake in the display case and decided she wanted it. According to the employee, she politely explained the situation. The cakes in the display case were already sold. They were waiting to be collected. The large signs reading "reserved" weren't decorations. They meant exactly what they said. Most customers would have accepted that. Karen did not. Immediately, her attitude changed. She crossed her arms, rolled her eyes, and demanded the cake anyway. The employee apologized again. Still no. The cake belonged to somebody else. Karen became louder, then louder again. According to the employee, she acted as though she was being personally attacked. All because she failed to place an order. Then came the threat. The classic threat. Karen leaned over the counter and announced she knew the owner. Very well. Apparently. According to Karen, the owner would be furious when he learned employees were refusing to help one of his friends. The employee had heard similar claims before. Usually they were nonsense, that this situation was no different. Because according to the employee, she had never seen this woman before, and neither had anyone else. Yet Karen continued doubt. Now she was threatening jobs, demanding names, promising people would be fired, promising consequences, promising revenge, all over a football cake. By the way, if you've ever worked customer service and had someone claim they knew the owner, make sure to subscribe, because Karen was about to embarrass herself on an unbelievable level. Unknown to Karen, the owner had heard everything, every complaint, every threat, every ridiculous demand. According to the employee, he quietly walked out from the kitchen, not angry, not annoyed, not amused, very amused. He calmly asked what seemed to be the problem. Karen immediately pointed at the employee, then launched into a dramatic explanation. Apparently, she was being mistreated. Apparently, nobody wanted to help her. Apparently, the employee was refusing to sell her a cake. The owner listened carefully, then asked if she had reserved one. Karen admitted she hadn't. The owner nodded, then politely explained the exact same policy. The cakes were reserved. They belonged to other customers, and she couldn't have one. Karen was stunned. Apparently, this wasn't how the conversation was supposed to go. Then she made another mistake. She repeated the claim, "I know the owner." According to the employee, the owner nearly laughed. Instead, he decided to play along. For a little while, the owner casually asked, "Oh, really?" Karen nodded confidently, very confidently. The owner then replied, "Well, when you see him, tell him I'm sleeping with his wife." Karen froze. The employee almost lost it, but the owner kept going. "Tell him she screams my name every night." According to the employee, she had to physically turn away to avoid laughing. Karen looked horrified, then suspicious, then angry again. Eventually, she recovered and decided to double down. She pointed at the owner and threatened him too. Apparently, she would tell the owner everything. Apparently, everybody was getting fired. The owner simply shrugged, then delivered the finishing blow. "Lady, I am the owner." Silence. Complete silence. According to the employee, the woman's face turned bright red. The confidence disappeared instantly. The threats disappeared. The attitude disappeared. Everything disappeared. Except embarrassment. A lot of embarrassment. The owner politely asked her to leave. Immediately, and according to the employee, she left faster than anyone expected. No more threats. No more demands. No football cake. Just humiliation. And honestly, the funniest part wasn't the football cake. It wasn't the threats. It wasn't even the fake friendship with the owner. It was the fact that Karen spent 10 minutes threatening people with a man who was standing right in front of her the entire time. She walked into the bakery expecting special treatment. She walked out with absolutely nothing. No cake. No apology. No victory. Just one unforgettable lesson. If you're going to pretend you know the owner, you should probably make sure you're not arguing with him first. And honestly, stories like this are always satisfying because nobody tricked Karen. Nobody lied to her. Nobody set her up. She created the entire disaster herself. All she had to do was accept that the cake was already reserved. Instead, she threatened employees, demanded special treatment, claimed she knew the owner, and somehow managed to spend 10 minutes arguing with the very person she claimed was her friend. In the end, she didn't get a football cake. She didn't get anybody fired, and she definitely didn't get the special treatment she thought she deserved. What she did get was a very public lesson in why entitlement and confidence aren't the same thing. But what do you think? Should the bakery have made an exception, or was Karen completely out of line from the moment she demanded someone else's reserved cake? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy entitled people's stories, Karen meltdowns, workplace drama, customer nightmares, and satisfying karma. Make sure to subscribe for more stories just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.